वेलकम बैक गाइस टू आवर चैनल। इस वीडियो में हम डिस्कस करेंगे BHU Zoology 2020 के क्वेश्चंस को। और अगर अभी तक आपने चैनल को सब्सक्राइब नहीं किया है तो प्लीज़ सब्सक्राइब द चैनल एंड हिट द बेल आइकन। Testosterone is secreted by. This is a structure of the testosterone molecule, and the testosterone is produced by the gonads. Leydig cell in the testes in man produce testosterone, and in women it is produced by the ovaries. Although small quantities of this hormone are also produced by adrenal gland in both of the sexes. It is an androgen, meaning that it will stimulate development of male characters. So our correct option will be option C. Our next question is, the ratite bird emu is found in. As you can see here, the ratites are native to most of the continents and a few islands of southern hemisphere. For example, the ostrich is found in Africa, rhees in South America, emus in Australia, cassowaries in Australia and New Zealand, and kiwis in New Zealand. Emu is the flightless bird of Australia and is the second largest living bird, which is more than 5 feet tall and may weigh up to more than 45 kgs. Emu is the sole living member of family Dromaeoidae of the order Cassuriformes, which also include the cassowaries. So our correct option will be option D, which is Australia. Next question is, cell wall in archaea is made up of. Both the bacteria and archaea have cell wall that protects them. The cell wall of archaebacteria are distinctive from those of eubacteria. In case of bacteria, it is composed of peptidoglycan, whereas in case of archaea, it is composed of pseudopeptidoglycan, polysaccharides, pseudomurine, glycoproteins or pure proteins. So our correct option will be option D, which is pseudopeptidoglycan. A dichotomous key is used to. Dichotomous keys are most often used by the scientists for identifying plant and animal species based on their observable characteristics. These are very useful because they allow non-expert users to identify organisms by directing them to look at the known important organisms. So our correct option will be option C, as a dichotomous key is used to identify an organism. Our next question is, which of the polymerase synthesize a polynucleotide chain in a template independent manner? Poli, a polymerase, which is polynucleotide adenyl transferase, belongs to DNA polymerase beta family of enzyme and is central to heart of polyadenylation machinery. It specifically generates polyadenine tail by incorporating ATPs at the 3' end of nascent pre-mRNA transcript in a template independent manner. So our correct option will be option A. The next question is, which of the following is the vertebrate organism? From this table, you can directly see which is the vertebrate and which is the invertebrate organism. Crayfish, cuttlefish and devilfish, all of the three are invertebrates. Only the globefish is the vertebrate organism. You can take the screenshot of this table also. It will be very helpful because it is also telling you about the phylum, class and order of these organisms. So our correct option will be option C, which is globefish. The bulk of CO2 is transported in the arterial blood as carbon dioxide can be transported through the blood via 3 different methods. Transported as dissolved form in plasma, which is about 7 to 10%, can bound to globin of the hemoglobin, which is about 20%, and transported as bicarbonate ions in the plasma, which is about 70%. The majority of carbon dioxide is transported as part of the bicarbonate system, which is generated from the carbonic acid produced by enzyme carbonic anhydrase in the red blood cells. So our correct option will be option B. Our next question is vertebrates are schizocele. Schizocele refers to the condition of embryonic development in which the body cavity is formed by the splitting of mesoderm, while the enterocoelous refers to the condition in which coelom forms pouches pinched off the digestive tract. Early chordates were considered to be enterocoelous. However, due to large yolk of the modern species, most of the vertebrates are schizocele. So our correct option will be option C. Next question is, a scientific name contains information about this. In the taxonomy, binomial nomenclature, also called as two-naming system, is a formal system of naming species of living things by giving each a name composed of two parts, both of which use Latin grammatical forms. The first part starts with name of genus followed by the name of species as italics or underlined. So our correct option will be option D. Centrum, pre and post-zygapophysis transverse process are part of. As you can see in the figure, the vertebral column of frog is remarkable for its extreme shortness due to its inflexibility and absence of tail. It consists of only 9 vertebrae, last one followed by a cylinder bony root, the urostyle. First 8 and the 9th vertebrae are not typical and also differ from each other, while 2nd to 7th have similar characters and hence called as typical vertebrae. In a typical vertebrae, as you can see in this figure, a ring-like form with a large passage called as neuron canal through which the spinal cord passes is seen. The centrum is procellus in all the typical vertebrae. Its interior end is concave and posterior face is convex to fit into the concavity of centrum of the next vertebrae. Neural arch bears a small and blunt mid-dorsal neuron spine which is obliquely directed backward. Anteriorly at the base of neural spine, on either side, the neural arch bears upwardly and inwardly directed articular surfaces called as pre-zygapophysis. Pre-zygapophysis present at posterior margin of neural arch are directed downward and upward to fit into the pre-zygapophysis on the next. Side prominent tapering process directed inward arise from the neural arch and are called as transverse process. So the centrum, pre and post-zygapophysis transverse process are part of the vertebrae of frog. Inclusive fitness refers to the fitness of an individual by taking into account the consequence of its action. The inclusive fitness theory suggests that altruism among the organism who share a given percentage of genes enables those genes to be passed on to the subsequent generations. Inclusive fitness theory in evolutionary biology is the theory in which an organism's genetic success is believed to be derived from the cooperation and altruistic behavior. An altruistic act that support the survival of relative or other individual enhance the genetic fitness of both the recipient of the act and the altruistic organism. The propagation of shared gene was believed to be underlying mechanism for evolution of eusociality. The inclusive fitness will take into consideration its individual reproduction and also of the reproduction of individual whom it is genetically related. For example, Cynophilus regulus is an organism whose social trait meets the inclusive fitness. The larger defender protects the young juvenile in colony from outsiders. By ensuring young survival, the genes will continue to be passed on to the future generation. So our correct option will be option D. Our next question is, which part of the amniote egg is responsible for storing waste? In a typical amniote egg, amnion keeps the embryo from drying out, so it is the critical to living on land. Allantois stores waste from the embryo and also fuses with the chorion to form chorioallantoic membrane, which carry oxygen and carbon dioxide to and from the embryo just like a lung. So our correct option will be option C. If one is viewing an object under a light microscope in blue light whose wavelength is 450 nanometer using a simple high powered lens whose numerical aperture is 0.94, then what will be the limit of resolution of the microscope? As you can see here, the resolution, which is D, is given by the formula 0.61 into lambda divided by numerical aperture. So when we multiply 0.61 into the 450 divided by 0.94, then we get resolution which is 292 nanometer, which is approximately equal to 300 nanometer. The limit of resolution is basically the minimum distance between two closely situated points to distinguish them separately. So from the calculation we can conclude that the correct option will be option D. Our next question is, common name of Cytophilus oryzae is? Common name of Cytophilus oryzae is the rice weevil, which is a stored product pest which attack seeds of several crops including wheat, rice and maize. So our correct option is option C, which is rice weevil. Next question is, which of the following is associated with prolonged fasting? Fasting for 3 or more days cause a 30% or more decrease in circulating insulin and glucose, as well as rapid decline in level of insulin-like growth factor 1, which together with insulin is associated with accelerated aging and cancer. The metabolic response to fasting involves a series of hormonal and metabolic adaptation leading to increased plasma level of fatty acid, which means increased lipolysis and circulatory ketone bodies. As fasting prolonged, glycogen is depleted and hepatocytes synthesize glucose from the gluconeogenesis. The major substrate for gluconeogenesis are amino acid derived from skeletal muscle protein breakdown. Nitrogen is lost from ammonia present in protein plus non-protein aminogen, and finally kidney removes this nitrogen waste from body through excretion of urea, uric acid, ammonium ions, etc. The remaining amino carbon skeleton are oxidized directly in the citric acid cycle or indirectly after conversion to glucose, which is subsequently oxidized in the citric acid cycle. So our correct option will be option A, which is increased urinary excretion of nitrogen. The next question is, in lineal hierarchy, order comes between. In biology, plant and animal have traditionally been classified by structure of their bodies in a descending hierarchy of 7 major levels: kingdom, phylum, class, then order, family, genus, and species. So, order is coming in between the class and family. So, our correct option will be option B. Our next question is, index fossils are best exemplified by. Index fossils represent any animal or plant remain which are preserved in the rock record of Earth that is characteristic of a particular span of geological time or environment. A good index fossil has 4 characteristics. It is distinctive, widespread, abundant and limited in geological time. Example of the index fossils include amniotes, which were there during the Mesozoic era, about 245 to 65 million years ago, and went extinct during Chaetic extinction, which is about 65 million years ago. Brachiopods appeared during the Cambrian period, about 540 to 500 million years ago, and some examples are still there. Graptolites that lead from the Cambrian period, about 540 to 500 million years ago, to the early Carboniferous period, which is 360 to 320 million years ago. Trilobites were common during the Paleozoic era, about 540 to 245 million years ago. About half of the Paleozoic fossils are trilobites. They evolved at the beginning of Paleozoic era and went extinct during late Permian period, which is about 248 million years ago. So all of the three examples show the index fossil. A taxonomist observes scale as one of the morphological features to identify certain fish species. Which of the following option has all the correct combination? A typical fish body is covered with thin scales that overlap each other like shingles of a roof. Skin of the scoliodon, which is dogfish, is coarse and has the feel of the sandpaper. Roughness is due to minute, hard and tooth-like dermal denticles called as placoid scales embedded in the skin in regular oblique rows and forming the exoskeleton. In Labiorhita, trunk and tail are covered by thin, rounded, overlapping dermal cycloid scales. Ctenoid scales resemble the cycloid scales but have comb-like teeth on their overlapping edge and commonly found in Indian climbing perch, which is Anabas. So the correct option is placoid scales, which are there in Scoliodon, cycloid in the labio and ctenoid in the Anabas, which is option B. Next question is, which type of primary sex determination mechanism is followed in humans? Humans have XY sex determination system, which is also found in other mammals, some insects also. In this system, female have two same chromosome, which is XX sex chromosome, while the male have two distinct sex chromosome, which are X and Y. X is to A ratio determine the sex in the Drosophila, and presence of one or two X chromosome determines sex in certain insects. Haplo-diploidy during early embryonic development determines sex in honeybees, while the presence or absence of Y chromosome determine male or female sex is there in humans. So our correct option will be option D. Our next question is, black water fever is a special manifestation of malaria caused by black water fever, called as malarial hemoglobinuria, one of the less common yet more dangerous complication of malaria, having high mortality rate. It occurs exclusively with infection from the parasite, which is Plasmodium falciparum. So our correct option will be option B. Next question is, which of the following glycolytic enzyme catalyze substrate level ATP synthesis? In glycolysis, there are two steps which possess substrate level phosphorylation. First is conversion of 1,3-biphosphogystrate to 3-phosphoglycerate by enzyme 3-phosphoglycerate kinase, and second is conversion of phosphoenol pyruvate to pyruvate by enzyme pyruvate kinase. So our option will be option C is the correct. Next question is, I-131 emits mainly. Iodine-131 is most commonly used iodine radioisotope used for diagnostic and therapeutic purpose in nuclear medicine and oncology. Iodine 131 has half-life of 8.06 days and decays mostly by the beta emission to form a stable 131Xe. So our correct option will be option B. Iodine 131 emit mostly beta rays. Next question is energy referred to. Lymphocyte are small white blood cell that orchestrate and directly participate in immune defense. Silencing of self-reactive clone of immune system against self-antigens is great method to develop immune intolerance. A state of immune unresponsiveness means the failure in mounting immune response is termed as energy. So our correct option is option B. Energy refers to unresponsiveness to an antigen. Next question is, biological species concept give emphasis mainly on. A biological species is a group of individuals that can breed together. The biological species concept gives an explanation of how species form by the speciation, and a species taxon is a group of organisms that can successfully interbreed and produce fertile offspring. According to that concept, a species integrity is maintained by interbreeding within a species as well as by reproductive barrier between organisms in different species. So our correct option will be option B, which is reproductive relationship. Next question is, which one of the following represent correct structure of 5' cap of a mRNA? In eukaryotes, the 5' cap found on first nucleotide of 5' end of an mRNA molecule consists of guanine nucleotide connected to an mRNA via an unusual 5' to 5' triphosphate linkage. This 5' cap is added in the transcript during transcription, and guanosine is methylated on 7 position directly after capping in vivo by methyl transferase. This cap protects the nascent transcript from being broken down and also assists in ribosome binding to mRNA and starting reading to make it a protein. A poly A tail is added to 3' end of pre-mRNA once the elongation is complete. So our correct option will be option C, because the guanine nucleotide connect to mRNA via an unusual 5' to 5' triphosphate linkage. Next question is, a 58-year-old woman goes to her physician because she is having difficulty in threading needle. After the physical examinations, she is diagnosed with presbyopia. Her condition is caused by which of the following? Presbyopia is caused by hardening of lens of eye, which occur with aging. As lens become less flexible, it can no longer change shape to focus on close objects. As a result, these images appear out of focus. So our correct option will be option C, which is stiffening of lens or the thickening of lens that cause presbyopia. Next question is, Cushing syndrome is due to hypersecretion of. Cushing syndrome remains the most common cause of endogenous cortisol excess. The rare disorder is characterized by hypersecretion of adrenocorticotropic hormone from adrenal pituitary, result in syndrome characterized by overproduction of cortisol. So correct option will be option D. Which one of the following is most commonly used cryo-protectant? Cryo-protectant or antifreeze are useful chemicals which stabilize biomolecules at fluctuating temperature. There are so many cryoprotectants, but the glycerol, propionyl glycol, dimethyl sulfoxide are most commonly used within this category. Glycerol depresses the freezing point of bacterial cell, enhancing supercooling. It does so by forming strong hydrogen bond with water molecules competing with water-water hydrogen bonding. This disrupts the crystalline lattice formation of ice unless the temperature is significantly lowered. It also reduces harmful effect of ice crystal or bacteria which can damage cell by dehydration caused by a localized increase in salt concentration leading to denaturation of protein. So our correct option will be option A. Next question is bubonic plague involves. Bubonic plague is one of the three types of plague caused by the deadly plague bacterium Yersinia pestis. This disease is an infection of lymphatic system usually resulting from the bite of an infected flea Xenopsilla cipios, the oriental rat flea, to which this plague bacteria remain harmless. The flea is parasitic on house and field rat and seek out the other prey when its rodent host dies. Rats act as a transmitting factor of disease to humans due to their common association with human as well as the nature of their blood. When the flea ingests blood from such rat and regurgitate ingested blood to human host, it amplifies the infection. 1 to 7 days after exposure to bacteria, flu-like symptoms develop along with the swollen lymph node known as buboes and cause terminal outbreak of disease among the humans. So the cycle will be including rat, insect and bacteria. Next question is, faucet aerator are useful in reducing loss of. Aerator is a small device having small holes and often installed on the edge of a faucet. As you can see here, this small device reduces the amount of water usage and make using a sink, shower and bathtub far more convenient. So our correct option is option A. Next question is, eusocial organization is found in all species of. Eusocial species refers to any colonial animal species that live in multi-generational family groups in which the vast majority of individuals cooperate to aid relatively few reproductive group members. Such species often exhibit extreme task specialization which make colonies potentially very efficient in gathering resources. Eusocial behavior is found in ants and bees. Order is Hymenoptera, some wasps in the family Vespidae, termites order Isoptera, some thrips order Thysanoptera, aphids family Aphidae, and possibly some of the beetles of the order Coleoptera. So according to this, our correct option will be ants and termites. Eusocial organization is found in all species of these two. Next is, torsion is the characteristic feature of larval development of which of the following molluscan class? Torsion is a gastropod synomorphy which occurs in all gastropods during the larval development. So the correct option will option A. Next question is, normal splitting of heart sound into two components is increased during inspiration because. The normal splitting of a heart sound into two components is increased during inspiration because the venous return to right ventricle increase during inspiration due to negative intrathoracic pressure and P2 is even more delayed. So it is normal for the split of second heart sound to widen during inspiration and to narrow during expiration. S2 splitting is heard when aortic and pulmonic valve close at slightly different time. Normal S2 splitting can be heard in person with no heart disease. S2 splitting with widen with inspiration and narrow with expiration. Nearly the simultaneous closing of the aortic and pulmonic valve normally generate a single S2 sound. S2 splitting is heard when aortic and pulmonic valve close at slightly different time. Normal S2 splitting is associated with inspiration. During the inspiration, diaphragm contracts and move inferiorly towards abdomen by up to 10 cm. The associated increase in the abdominal pressure and corresponding decrease of the intrathoracic pressure leads to increased venous return from the systemic circulation to right heart. It takes a little longer for the right ventricle to pump the increased amount of blood. Consequently, the pulmonic valve closure is delayed compared to the aortic valve closure, and this delay is observed as S2 splitting. Prolonged or fixed S2 splitting can be a sign of the heart disease such as arterial septal defect or right bundle branch block. So the correct option will be option C. The next question is, the phi and psi bones are regular features of dihedral angle or the torsional angle are characteristic in explaining the route of protein folding. These allowed rotation across the peptide backbone represented as phi, rotation across the N and C alpha, or the psi, rotation across C alpha and C carbon. Specific secondary conformation like helices or sheet have specific limited value set of phi psi. The average psi and phi value for alpha helices are phi value is minus 57 and psi value is minus 47. For beta parallel sheet, the values are minus 120 for phi and plus 115 for psi. And the anti-parallel beta sheet have value of minus 145 and plus 135 is psi. On the other hand, an unfolded or loosely folded secondary conformation may have comparatively larger number of positive or negative value of phi and psi. So phi and psi bone are regular feature of the polypeptide. Next question is, which of the following behavioral component can be placed in the category of agnostic behavioral pattern? Agnostic behavior is a type of social behavior related to fighting, which is commonly observed among many animal species because resources including food, shelter, mates are often limited. Agnostic term has broader meaning than aggressive behavior because it includes threat, display, retreats, placations, and conciliations. Agnostic behavior is comprised of threats, aggression, and submission. Such behavior include aggression through sound such as growl, bark, etc., through sight, changing coloration or inflating body structure, and even scent which produce direct physical damage. So, a dog running from a threatening dog represent the agnostic behavior pattern. Next question is, between the fertilization and first cleavage division, actin filament pull the cytoplasm of frog egg towards the point of sperm entry in a process called. The cortical reaction is a microtubule mediated process initiated during the fertilization by release of cortical granules from the amphibian egg, by which it prevents polyspermy. Polyspermy is the fusion of multiple sperm with one egg. In xenopus, this cytoplasmic process transforms eggs polarized cylindrical symmetry into bilateral symmetry within first cycle after the fertilization. With no rotation, ventralized embryos are formed. So, the correct option is option B, which is cortical rotation. Our next question is trinomial expansion of Hardy Weinberg equilibrium for 3 allele condition will be. In population genetics, Hardy Weinberg equilibrium states that the allele and genotypic frequency in a population will remain constant from one generation to next generation in absence of other evolutionary influences. These influences includes genetic drift, mate choice, assortative mating, natural selection, sexual selection, mutation, gene flow, etc. Let us suppose there are two alleles. Capital A will be our dominant allele and small a will be our recessive allele. So, and the frequency of dominant allele will be P and recessive allele will be Q. Hardy Weinberg equilibrium realized that chance of all possible combination of allele occurring randomly is P plus Q ka whole square, which is equal to 1. And in this equation, P square will be frequency of homozygous dominant, Q square will be frequency of homozygous recessive, and 2PQ is the frequency of heterozygotes. Similarly, the Hardy Weinberg equilibrium can be extended to gene with multiple alleles. Suppose there are three alleles A1, A2 and A3 at a locus with dominant hierarchy A1 dominate A2 and A2 in turn dominate A3. Let P, Q and R represent frequency of these alleles. And in the right side you can see how can we calculate P, Q and R for these respective alleles. The trinomial expansion for this equation then will become P plus Q plus R ka whole square, which will be equal to P square plus Q square plus R square plus 2PQ plus 2PR plus 2QR. So our correct option will be option C. What kind of aneuploidy gametes will be generated if non-disjunction occurs at first division of meiosis? Here in the 4 option, N represent the haploid number of chromosomes. This order of chromosome number includes duplication or loss of entire chromosomes as well as changes in complete set of chromosomes. They are caused by non-disjunction, which occurs when pair of homologous chromosomes or sister chromatids fail to separate during meiosis. The risk of non-disjunction increase with the age of parents. Non-disjunction can occur during either meiosis 1 or meiosis 2 with different results. Non-disjunction in meiosis 1 occurs when tetrads fail to separate during the anaphase 1, and at the end of meiosis 1 there will be two haploid daughter cells, one with n plus 1 composition and other with n minus 1. Means if homologous chromosomes fail to separate during meiosis 1, the result is two gametes that lack chromosome and two gametes with two copies of the chromosome. If sister chromatids fail to separate during meiosis 2, the result is one gamete that lack chromosome and the two gametes with one copy of chromosome and one with two copies of chromosomes. You can see from this figure, and our correct option will be option C. So you can see here, if non-disjunction occurs at first division of meiosis, then both n plus 1 and n minus 1 gametes are produced. The frequency of two alleles in a gene pool is 0.19, which is for dominant allele, and 0.8, which is for recessive allele. Assume that the population is in Hardy Weinberg equilibrium. The percentage of heterozygous individual and recessive homozygous individual in the population will be. As I have told earlier, Hardy Weinberg equilibrium states that allele frequency and genotypic frequency in a population will remain constant from one generation to other in absence of other evolutionary influences. These influences include genetic drift, mate choice, assortative mating, natural selection, etc. Hardy Weinberg equilibrium is depicted by equation P plus Q ka whole square equal to 1, which can be expanded as P square plus 2PQ plus Q square, where P square is the frequency of homozygous dominant individual, 2PQ is the frequency of heterozygotes, and Q square is the frequency of homozygous recessive individuals. In this question, we need to find out heterozygous individual and homozygous recessive individual. Homozygous recessive individual will be given by Q square and heterozygous individual by 2PQ. So we will multiply 2 with 0.19 and 0.18 and get about 31% individuals, and Q square we will square 0.8, we get 0.64, which is 64%, which is approximately equal to 66%. So our correct option will be option B. Our next question is, the strength of the selection is expressed as the coefficient of selection, which is given as S. If the contribution of the favored genotype is taken to be 1, then the contribution of genotype selected against will be. The coefficient of selection is usually taken to be a measure of the extent to which natural selection is acting to reduce the relative contribution of a given genotype to the next generation. It is number between 0 and 1. Suppose if S is equal to 1, then selection against the genotype is total and it makes no contribution to next generation. If S is 0, the genotype is not selected against at all. In this case, gene frequency will lapse into Hardy Weinberg case, unless there is neutral drift. Slightly different notation for selected coefficient is employed for the study of neutral drift. When interested in whether one form of a molecule is a higher or lower or equal witness than other form, it may be more convenient to talk about the selection coefficient that are plus, 0 or minus. A positive selection coefficient means that natural selection favors the variant. Negative means it is selected against. 0 means it is neutral. For example, genotype selected express the fitness of one group relative to other is termed as relative fitness, and if coefficient will be 0.1, the fitness would be 1 minus S, that is 0.9 or 90%. So our correct option will be option C, which is 1 minus S. Thank you guys for watching the video, and if you like the video then please share and subscribe. Thank you so much.